All right, guys, we're live.
All right, cool. So this one is discussing with everybody sources of power and influence that are referenced in the textbook first, and then discussing ways cultural difference may influence the way we interact with leaders and employ power. So who wants to start about if any of you guys have employed various sources of power and influence that have been referenced in the book?
Well, I haven't really ever been in a quote unquote leadership position per se. But as a follower, like where I work now, I work at the Fred Meyer Distribution Center. And I don't know if any of you guys know what Fred Meyer's is, if you guys have them where you are. But it's basically like Albertsons or Safeway. Whenever my management, we use a lot of coercive power and a lot of reward power. And I wouldn't say they necessarily use them in a like negative, unethical way, but the coercive power is basically we're not allowed to have any phones on the floor because we're in the warehouse. So they're really scared about people like sending pictures or like videos to potential competitors like Amazon and stuff like that. So we're not supposed to have phones on the floor. So the coercive is kind of, we have a phone on the floor, they're going to write us up. And since we're in a union, it's a process. So it starts with a write-up, or actually a verbal warning, a write-up, and then potentially being fired. And then the reward power, since we're also in a warehouse, we have a lot of heavy equipment. So if anyone bumps into a racking, a full pallet fall on someone and injure them. So like if we go X amount of days with anyone having no issues with safety or injuries, then we get a safety buck, which is basically equivalent to 1 hour of pay. And if you have 8 of them, then you can get a whole day off.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of their reward power. And I think they both work really good just for the setting. And our culture too, because we have a very male dominant culture. So yeah, I mean, it works really well, and that does change how we communicate with leadership also. So I don't know. That's basically where it's at with that.
Okay. Cool.
Anyone want to go next?
I can go or
you want to go?
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Janet, please.
Okay. In my line of work, I work for the City of Department Recreation and Parks for Los Angeles. And so I use like legitimate, referent, and expert power the most. When it comes down to, like, I'll give you an example. At my facility, we have a basketball court and we have open gym time. And that majority of the time is like big dudes in the gym, you know, and mixed with little kids. And so it helps when I have legitimate power for the younger kids. They know who's like boss and who is going to set the rules and they need to listen to. But for the adults, it doesn't always work the same way. So that's when my expert power comes into play. I've been doing youth sport leagues since like birth. So when they have a dispute or they need like rules set, I don't only use the fact that, yes, legitimate power, I'm the boss. I know what the sport is going on and I have like a background in that sport and they respect that. So they listen to it more. You know, they don't try to overstep me because I'm young and I'm like a girl. So.
Nice.
Cool. Right, so the example I want to use is from my time in the Marines. A lot of things that we did was basically legitimate power. So it doesn't really matter who's telling you, you know, to do something. If you know if they outrank you or you know they're the boss, then that's the word, and you got to follow it. So I mean, there wasn't really any reward. Power, anything like that. So the main ones we used were legitimate and expert power. Legitimate, obviously, due to the rank structure and people in positions, and then the expert power simply, you know, the people who were, you know, locked on their jobs. You know, they knew what they were doing, and you know, if they told you to do something, you know, they knew the job better than you, and you know, you would obviously follow. So those are the two types of power that, I employed as I came up through the ranks during my time there. Just kind of following along with the way I was treated, essentially, with doing that. So kind of a respect the rank, not the man kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I mean, I can go. So I actually do have a leadership position. I work at Starbucks, like I told you guys. I'm actually a shift super. I was just recently promoted to a shift supervisor. So I'm essentially just charged. Thank you. I'm essentially just in charge of like running the floor when the manager's not there. So, and since it's Starbucks, no one's really like that motivated to like want to do good because it's just like a part-time thing that nobody really wants to care about moving up. So you kind of got to find like different ways to motivate people as a boss because like nobody's trying to be there their whole lives, like for the most part. So you got to find ways how to try to make people like be excited about working. So I feel that the two that I use the most are referent power. So like what I mean by this is that I try to have a good relationship with them. You want to be like a good role model for them. So because it's like a teamwork, like everybody's working together. So like you want to get everybody on the same page and working together, and like you want to make them want to help you rather than they feel like they have to help you, So like you just want to sorry, I lost my page. I was reading off my thing.
No problem.
Because like if you feel like you have to help somebody, you're not going to do like the same like job as if you wanted to help them. Like for example, my old boss, like I kind of hated him. We had a bad relationship. He never appreciated me. But my new boss came in. She's always telling me how good of a job I'm doing, and like we have a good relationship. So like I feel like that I'm like now that like I have a good relationship with her, I'm coming in more like to help her out like on days she needs people to come in, or like I'm just going up and above to do things for her because I have that like good relationship with her. And also the reward power. I use this a lot. Like say I'm like closing the store late at night and I want to get somebody to like clean the bathroom, something that nobody wants to do. I'd be like, listen, dude, if you do this, I won't put you on bar. I won't make you do this for the rest of the week. Like you kind of like give incentives to people to want to do things like that because nobody wants to clean the public bathroom. That's good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Totally. Were you gonna go, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, go for it. No, it's okay.
So where I work, I'm in a leadership role right now, and actually doing the assessment, I scored high in 3 different ones. It was reward, referent, and expert, which I kind of agree with all of them. I've been in my field for I think 9 years. So I would say I'm an expert at what I do. So my employees really come to me for questions, and they come to me when they don't know how to do something. And I have to facilitate meetings all the time at work. So I am an expert at explaining how the process goes in our department. So I'm like that go-to person. I'm the liaison for the facility in my department. As far as reward power goes, I kind of feel like that's like bribing your employees. But for me, when I reward my employees, I reward them on good behavior. Like, hey, you did such a great job at doing this. I'm going to let you go home maybe 2 hours early today. And that, I'll go ahead and pick up the slack wherever you left off. But my strongest power, I feel, is the referent. Like, I feel like I am a role model to my employees, to my department, and I can be a role model for those who are just coming into our facility as well, even if they're not working in our department. I like to show that you can trust me, you can come to me if you need help with anything. So it's a really culturally diverse agency that I work in, and you have to understand people and kind of be able to read their nonverbal cues, like if they're not comfortable in the room. A lot of them get picked on because they don't like to speak up, but in their culture, that's them showing respect to you. as they're just listening to you. They're, you know, when you ask them, hey, you know, you guys, you have any questions? Is there anything you want to add? And no one says anything. The room is dead silent. You don't take that as, okay, maybe what did I bore them to death? But a lot of the people that I work with, they come from like the Middle East or they're Asians. They're really quiet, really reserved. But later, when everyone leaves the room, is when they come to you and say, oh, hey, you know, I have this that I want to add on, or I didn't want to say this in front of everyone because I didn't want them to think that you didn't know what you were talking about, but, you know, this is what I wanted to tell you. I said, okay, great. You know, that's perfect. I love feedback. And whatever you want to tell me, you can do it. My door's always open. Yeah. So that's a little bit about where I work.
Awesome.
Cool. Let's see, for my, kind of after this week's readings, like I've always gravitated to the expert power of things. Like before the current job I had, I was in another position for a long, long time. And so really helped. Like to me, like there's not another, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but there's not another power that's more influential to me than expert power. Like that you've mastered a skill, you've done all the things required to know how to work it. And so I generally gravitate to that and follow that. Like both, like I look to work in companies where like I'm either coming under that, like someone who's a true expert in what they do, or I look to be that person myself. But kind of with that, I think that ties into a place of referent power, right? Like to me, like the place that referent power comes in is like if you've seen an expert in their field and they're willing to teach you and kind of learn and let you learn from them. Like I'm so willing to go the extra mile. I'm so willing to do the extra stuff. Like if they've said, hey, I know this field and I'm willing to bring you alongside it. Like I see those two kind of going hand in hand. The third place that I kind of really feel is super important is information power. Like to me, like in my new job, like I work with like a lot of distributed teams, and half the team is like based in Colombia. And so like culturally, they are a totally different society than Americans, right? Like they gravitate to a single authoritative leader. And in our company, we have no rigid hierarchy. So like, it's a really unusual place for them to be expected to think by themselves, to do things by themselves, without someone specifically saying, hey, you need to do this by this day to get this done. And so like, I've found like a way that like helps to kind of work around that cultural difference is like using information. If they have an understanding of the context and the reasoning behind it, it kind of empowers them to think beyond themselves as opposed to just looking to a singular leader to get all the information and all the direction. And because I think they usually rely heavily on that legitimate power, whether it's like culturally put in place or like by a specific job title. So those are the three that I kind of tend to work in the most, and specifically information has been where I'm at. Like if I give a whole context and I explain the whole reason why, then a lot of times they'll be able to go and do things by themselves because they are all experts in what they do. That's the irony of it all. But they don't tend to do that on their own initiative. So I'm kind of learning to like rely more on information as power and give people the whole context of a situation, which has seemed to help get results. So, yeah.
Hey, Matt, are we good on time?
Yeah, we are at 14 minutes.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, going off of what you said, Emrys, is, I think you were saying like different cultures, there is always just one person in power. Like there is one boss, from what I've experienced in working with people with other cultures is they really, gravitate toward one person. There's really no shared power, in their roles. So that's, I think, the biggest cultural difference that I've experienced.
That's true. Yeah.
Cool. Do we have anything else to cover or anything? Are we good?
I think we're good.
That's it for today.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.